I opened the door to my son's room, just to say goodnight like I always did, but what I found stopped my breath cold.
He was not there.
His bed was empty, but someone else was sitting on the edge, waiting for me, with a look in his eyes that made my knees weaken. It was Maurice, my son's best friend, 23 years old. I should have turned around. I should have said something, anything, but instead I just stood there, frozen in the doorway, with my heart beating louder than it had in years. And then he spoke, not as a boy, not as my son's friend, but as a man who had clearly made up his mind about something that should have never happened between us. What he said next, I have never told anyone, not even Perry, not even myself, really, because that night, something inside me changed forever. Before I continue, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being here. Whether you are new or returning, thank you for listening to my story. If you have not subscribed yet, please do. Your support is what gives this channel the strength to keep going. Every like, comment, and share helps keep these stories alive. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It truly means the world. And do not forget to tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, let me take you back to the night everything changed. My name is Rosemary. I live in a quiet suburb of Tennessee. I am 49 years old, a widow for the past 8 years, and the proud, sometimes exhausted, mother of a 24-year-old named Perry. Perry has always been a good boy. Quiet, smart, maybe too trusting. He had one best friend since middle school, Maurice. Maurice was the kind of young man every mother wanted around her child. Polite, well-spoken, thoughtful. But as they grew older, I began noticing something different about the way he looked at me. I would catch him watching me from across the kitchen, eyes lingering too long. I brushed it off as harmless. Maybe admiration, maybe curiosity. I never took it seriously.
Until that night.
Perry had told me earlier he was heading to a friend's for a game night, so when I saw Maurice's car still outside, I figured he left it and went with someone else. That was not unusual. What was unusual was Maurice being in Perry's room, alone, in the dark, sitting on the edge of the bed like he had been waiting. I asked him softly, "Is everything all right?" He stood up slowly and walked closer. "I wanted to talk to you."
Just you.
I felt a lump grow in my throat.
About what?
And then he said it. "You look lonely. I have seen it in your eyes. And I do not think you have smiled, really smiled, in years. You deserve to feel seen." My body went stiff. My mind screamed, but my chest, it burned with something I could not name. I stepped back, but my back hit the doorframe. I was trapped in a moment I never imagined. His voice was low,
calm,
intimate, and all I could do was listen. I should have told him to leave. I should have said, "This is wrong." But what I said instead was something that still haunts me to this day. I whispered, "Why now?" And his reply made my heart break open like glass under pressure. "Because I am tired of pretending I do not care." The next morning, I could barely look at myself in the mirror. The sun rose like it always did over our quiet neighborhood in Tennessee, but nothing inside me felt the same. My house still smelled like brewed coffee and cinnamon candles, but the air felt different.
Heavier.
Like guilt had taken a seat at the kitchen table and dared me to say something out loud. I avoided it. Avoided him. Avoided the memory of standing in my son's room while his best friend looked at me like I was not just his best friend's mother, but a woman he wanted. A woman he saw. And I hated myself for not walking away fast enough. I am Rosemary, 49, a widow, a mother, a woman who had spent the last 8 years pretending that loneliness was not eating me alive. But that morning, I realized that pretending only takes you so far before the cracks begin to show. I kept playing it back in my head.
Not what he said.
Not even what he did, but how I let it linger. How I let myself feel wanted. Perry came home around noon. He kissed me on the cheek, just like always. Sat on the couch and started talking about some sports scores I could not even register. And I nodded. I smiled. I played the part, but inside I was breaking. Then he asked, "Hey, did Maurice stop by last night? He said he might drop something off." I felt my throat tighten. I swallowed it down and said, "Yes."
He did.
Did he say anything? My heart paused. Just that he was going to head home soon. Perry nodded, then leaned back and started texting. I walked into the kitchen and nearly collapsed against the sink. The guilt was worse than any storm I had ever known. I had spent my whole life trying to protect my son, and now I was keeping a secret that could ruin him. And not just him, Maurice too. Later that week, I got a text from Maurice. Simple.
Direct.
"Can we talk?" I ignored it. He sent another 2 days later. "I did not mean to scare you, but I meant every word." I stared at that message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the reply button. I deleted everything I wrote and put the phone down. But the silence between us did not stop the noise inside my head. One rainy afternoon, I was home alone. Perry had gone to visit his aunt in Memphis for the weekend. I heard a knock at the door. My stomach twisted before I even opened it. It was him, Maurice. Soaking wet, hoodie pulled over his head, eyes softer than I had ever seen them. "I just need 5 minutes," he said. "If you still want me to leave after that, I will." I should have shut the door, but I stepped aside. He sat at the edge of the couch, the same way he sat at the edge of that bed. And he told me everything. How long he had felt this way. How he tried to ignore it out of respect for Perry. How seeing me alone, always doing everything for everyone else, made him feel something he could not suppress. I asked him, "Do you understand what this would do to him?" He nodded.
Yes.
That is why I never said anything. But I cannot lie anymore. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I leaned in and I held his face in my hands.
And I cried.
Not because of him, but because of what I was becoming. That night, something happened. Not physical, not explicit, but emotional.
Deep.
Unforgivable. We sat there on that couch until morning.
Talking.
Confessing. Imagining a world that could never exist. And when Perry came back on Sunday night, something in his eyes told me he knew. He asked me where I had been on Saturday. I told him I was home all day. He asked, "Alone?" I hesitated, then nodded. He stared at me for a long time. Then he said something that shattered the illusion. "I heard Maurice on the phone this morning. He said your name." The moment Perry said those words, "He said your name," my world slowed. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear what he said next. I must have stood there in silence for a full minute, trying to steady my breath. My hands were trembling, though I tried to hide them behind the kitchen counter. He looked at me differently, not like a boy looking at his mother, but like a man who had just realized someone he trusted might have betrayed him. The air in the room was suffocating, and for the first time since my husband died, I wished he was still alive, if only to protect our son from this kind of pain. "Why would Maurice be talking about you, Mom?" Perry asked, eyes narrowing. I forced a shaky smile. "I have no idea." But that was the first real lie I had ever told my son. Over the next few days, Perry grew colder, distant, short answers, less eye contact. He stopped bringing Maurice around, stopped talking about him completely. I kept waiting for the truth to explode, but it just lingered, like a wound beneath the skin, festering in silence. I tried to focus on work, on church, on my garden. Anything to keep my mind off the storm building between the three of us. But one night, I came home from the grocery store and Maurice was waiting on my porch. "Rosemary," he said, "he knows something." I nodded. "I know." He stepped closer. "I cannot lie to him." "You have to," I said quietly. "We both do. This is not about us." Maurice looked heartbroken. And I will be honest, I was, too. There was a strange beauty in what we had shared. A tenderness I had not felt in years. But it had no place in the real world. Not between a mother and her son's best friend. Not in a house still haunted by memories and grief. The next day, Perry finally cracked. He slammed his bedroom door, stormed into the living room, and said, "Just tell me the truth. Did something happen between you and Maurice?" My mouth opened, but no words came out. He stepped back. That is all I needed. He packed a bag that night. Said he was going to stay with his cousin in Chattanooga. Said he did not know when he would be back. Maurice tried calling him. Tried texting. No reply. Within a week, Maurice left town. No goodbye. No closure. Just
Gone.
And I stayed in that quiet house. Alone. With memories I could not burn and guilt I could not bury. Months passed. Then one morning I received a letter. Handwritten. From Maurice. "Rosemary, I left because I could not watch you break anymore. I never meant to ruin your family, but I meant every word I ever said to you. I hope one day Perry will forgive you, and I hope you forgive yourself, too. You deserve to be loved, even if it was never meant to be me." I held that letter to my chest and cried for what felt like hours. Weeks later, Perry finally came home. He walked in, set his bag down, and looked me in the eye. "I do not hate you," he said, "but I do not understand you either. And I am not ready to talk about it." Then he went upstairs. That was it. No reunion. No healing words. Just
Space.
And honestly, maybe that was the best I could hope for. The truth is, one moment of emotional weakness can change everything. You think you know what you would do. You think you are strong enough to walk away. But then life hands you a moment wrapped in loneliness, and it asks a question you never thought you would have to answer. I answered wrong. And I will carry that with me for the rest of my life. If you have made it to the end of this story, thank you for staying with me. I know this one was hard. It was not clean. It was not perfect. But it was real. And sometimes, real life leaves you with scars instead of closure. Please do not forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your perspective. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs it, and subscribe to the channel for more raw, emotional stories like this. Until next time, take care of your heart, because it remembers everything.